Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Meisenhelter, and I'm excited to share about Henry Ford's experiences in the postbellum U.S. economy in the first 37 years of his life from 1863 to 1900. When we hear Ford's name, we usually think about his 20th century innovations, but we don't think about Henry Ford, the rural farm boy who personally participated in broader American historical developments like transitioning from agricultural work to technically skilled labor, moving from rural life to urban cities, and from employment to personal entrepreneurship. One early appearance of Henry Ford in the primary source record is in this population roster from rural Springwell Township of Wayne County, Michigan in the 1870 U.S. Census. Zooming in, we see that Henry Ford was born in the middle of the Civil War in 1863 in Michigan, and now in this 1870 census report, he is listed as the 7-year-old son of father farmer William Ford and mother Mary Ford, whose occupation is listed as keeping house. William Henry's father is shown to have immigrated from his birthplace in Ireland, another historical theme of the time. The Henry Ford Museum preserved this sketch of the Ford farm and its 200 apple trees found in an 1876 Wayne County, Michigan atlas. At this time, Henry was 13 and working with his father to grow and sell apples at market, along with other agricultural products and livestock you see in the sketch. Inside the farmhouse, we see this photograph of Ford's boyhood workbench, where he developed early mechanical skills repairing watches for people in the area. This much later photograph is simply included to show a closer glimpse of the outside of the Ford farm home in the background. By 1888, Ford was 25 and was still living the rural agricultural life. That same year, in April of 1888, he married Clara Bryant, as recorded in this Wayne County, Michigan marriage record. Zooming in, we see the 25-year-old Ford's occupation still listed as a farmer in rural Springwells Township. But in 1891, the biggest development started to happen in Ford's life, in concert with similar developments happening throughout the U.S. economy. Then he left agricultural and rural life behind to move to the city of Detroit, where he got a skilled job working as an engineer for the Edison Illuminating Company, as shown in this image. 2 years later, in 1893, Ford was promoted to chief engineer, and during his time at the company was able to meet and learn from entrepreneur Thomas Edison. This 1893 photo of the employees at the Edison Illuminating Company shows Ford in the back row, third from the right, where he was learning technical and business skill. Henry and Clara lived at 58 Bagley Avenue in Detroit, where out back sat a humble brick shed that housed Ford's first attempts at designing and building and marketing an early automobile in 1896 called the quadricycle. By June of 1896, the quadricycle was operational, pieced together through trial and error using spare parts from a steam engine, a horse-drawn buggy carriage, and wheels from bicycles. He sold the quadricycle to a man named Charles Ainsley for $200. This 1899 patent for a motor carriage was one of Ford's firsts, showing his increasing technological sophistication, business organization, and serious engagement in entrepreneurship just prior to the turn of the 20th century. David Danborn argues that postbellum communities were built around institutions that increasingly brought people together, like schools, churches, and businesses. As Ford moved from the country to the city, the Edison Illuminating Company did just that in his life. Richard Bensel explains that the American economy was increasingly integrated across various sectors and locations and states through the help of federal programs and policies with railroads, banks, and other businesses. These developments connected Ford to Detroit and other American cities, allowing for the incorporation of other businesses and markets more broadly that were previously separated. Milton Friedman explains how the U.S. monetary system was destabilized through the Coinage Act of 1873. Prior to that time, the money supply was buoyed by the free coinage of silver. but removing that practice destabilized the economy and the currency, bringing volatility and deflation across the US. For Ford, this was a challenge he had to overcome, and not all of his entrepreneurial efforts were successful, like his failed Detroit automobile company, but he persevered. Fleischman explains how the tragedy of the commons was originally seen wherein people would exploit collective resources for individual gain. However, he re-argues that the nature and choices of the institutions that govern the free market and common goods can make real differences in economic outcomes. In the end, Henry Ford's personal experiences in the post-bellum U.S. economy reflected broader phenomena in the history of the economy at large. He moved from rural life to the city, reflecting urbanization. He moved from agricultural work to industrial work, reflecting specialization, and took risks, reflecting entrepreneurship as new technologies were developed.